So I've gone ahead and done my own series of experiments after Chelsea shared her breakdowns. And so I will share my screen, find the correct window. Great. Awesome. So for those of you who are not part of the site builds team, you might not be familiar with our end-to-end QA process, but after development is over, we pull up this checklist and someone has to manually go in and go row by row and double check that everything has been done properly. And these are things from really basic things to more complex functionalities. And I'll just scroll through really quickly, but it is a pretty hefty list that we have to start checking for and comparing. And then here are some specific custom features that we added up for Friends of the Earth that the user has to go through and double check. So for this experiment, I wanted to see how well AI would take these and the provided URL, which was for the FOE site, and generate a list of the QA and see how well and how accurately it did it. So what I did was I typed in the dev URL and I just, no formatting, brain dumped a small section that would be mostly yes or no answers. So this wasn't, click into 5 pages and check if things are consistent, but more of distinct yes or no answers. Is a logo an SVG? Does it link to the homepage? Things that would be a quick and simple check even for a human. And so once I put all this into ChatGPT, it did a pretty good job double checking and giving me check marks, gave me an NA. So there was one that we missed. So even to this week where we're launching FOE, we don't have a corner shop logo present on the bottom. So that's something that this presentation prep has reminded me to add. And it also gave me some overall notes. And I continued this with different sections. So it does do a good job double checking things like the file type, the links that are on the home page. It also does responsive mode. So it checked the breakpoint and what's visible versus hidden on mobile. So this was a really awesome thing to see it generate. And I did also fact check it to make sure that these, what it spat out was correct. And I did find that it was fairly accurate. The only thing that was missing was the corner shop logo. So I continued with more things like site navigation, things like menu links, more responsive behavior, and it did a good job with all of the categories that I ended up going through. But I, just out of curiosity, brought this experiment into Gemini to see what that would look like. And so my prompt was the same. I put the links above, and then I just pasted in everything from the spreadsheet. And it spat out more of a table version. So it organized it. So unlike ChatGPT, which was a list format, it organized it into a table format. So it put it into this first column, which was the QA item, the status, whether it was a pass or a fail, which I appreciated. And then I did notice that Gemini went into slightly more detail than ChatGPT when it came to giving details about why something passed versus didn't. So as I'm looking through here, it gave me the actual file name as well. It checked the code for why a social link opened in a new tab, and it put that that ending or that URL or the code in there that made it open to a new tab. So it did dig a little bit into the code as well, and it gave us a fail. But when it gave us a fail for this, it was because the donate button wasn't within the donate button didn't disappear because it counted it as a utility bar. But it did, instead of just giving me a fail, I wouldn't have known what was wrong with the utility nav, but it gave me a pretty hefty explanation of why it deemed this utility nav being hidden on mobile as a fail. And this explanation also helped me know that this wasn't an issue because we don't want the donate button to be hidden on mobile. So it was great that it gave me this hefty explanation, and I do prefer Gemini a little bit more for this reason, but it could also export to Sheets. And so once I clicked on export to Sheets, it took my prompt. This title isn't great because it was my actual prompt as the title, but it gave me a very organized table that could be formatted into something like this down the line. But I was able to add a filter and uncheck things so that only the failed versions or the failed items would show up. So I did like the fact that this AI experiment allowed me to do quick checks and then also find a preference for one AI model over another. I do think this was a really great experiment because we generally have, I believe, 4 to 6 hours for a human to go in manually and double check every little detail. And that's great that someone is going in there and doing that check. But I think that if PMs could start doing this as they're going along projects or reviewing homepages and getting the basics out of the way, I do think it could lend more time to more custom functionalities or more content review that needs to be done by a human. So I did appreciate that. Another one that goes back to PMs smoke testing a little more as the project is in development, so not necessarily for end-to-end QA, was a design check. And so I have another chat open. I believe it's this one. So what I did was I wanted the AI to Gemini to check the dev site and then compare it to the mockup file that I had. For some reason, it didn't want to look at the URL. And so I uploaded a screenshot of the dev site and then a screenshot of the mockup. And I asked it to compare and contrast the two and see if we missed anything in terms of design. And similar to the end-to-end QA, it did a pretty good job. The table looks slightly different because it focuses on the element and then the result, what's different or what we missed in terms of style. And then it also shows us what the mockup did versus the live site did when it comes to color details or line details, text details, and so on. So it did break it up into different categories as well. And this could all be exported to Sheets, just like the other example. So this was a really neat experiment that I would encourage PMs to start doing as they're doing smoke testing during development time to see how closely we were able to match our mockups and our developed code. The next thing I will share is a little bit of transition into project management thinking, but last time I did share Notebook LM a little bit, but we were focused on the interface. So adding sources, what kind of sources we could add, this AI, the Notebook LM Studio to create mind maps, reports, and so on. But I have specific examples of what I've been using Notebook LM for. And so on the sidebar here, I have 62 sources. So these are all of the Gemini notes from internal meetings and client-facing meetings. They're all checked currently and all imported. And based on our discussion, I've had several times where I've needed to know how to understand a custom functionality. So I would type in what goes behind an after action report and can you map out the functional requirements. And Notebook LM has done a really great job scanning through, especially our internal meeting notes where Chris was explaining something or Matt was clarifying a request or a requirement. It did a really great job mapping that out. And something, I don't know if a lot of you have interacted with Matt, but he's someone that is very easygoing, but he doesn't say, I want this. He says, it would be nice if down the line, sometime in the future. And he kind of sneaks in his wish list items in there. So the most helpful thing for Gemini was to, I love asking it, what's on Matt's wish list? He always throws out nice to haves and down the line items. I want it in one list. And so this is something that I kind of come back to regularly, and it is able to organize what Matt has said in meetings because Gemini is following the transcripts and can actually even pick out those keywords of nice to have or down the line that he uses. So hopefully that ends up generating, and this is this clean list of things that Matt has wanted to work on in the future. And now we can actually follow up on it now that we have it organized with Gemini. The other thing that I have experimented with is this is a very multi-functionality, complex like website that we're building. And so we have several custom features that people are working on at once. And so I was even able to ask when it comes to verification requests, which is a name of one of our features, can you tell us, can you generate a worksheet for a client to fill out so that we have the full idea before we begin development? So I do believe, oh, let me see. I do believe it responded and it was able to give me this worksheet. And so in this worksheet, it adds questions and areas for clarification, which is great. So I could easily copy this column and send it over to Matt. But it also added a current assumption column. And I don't know if it's going to do this with all projects, but the assumption word is something that we use a ton during our internal stand-up. So I did appreciate it pulling out that current assumptions column and adding in what our current understanding was. And so it was really helpful to see it in this way where it organized it by category. So it has like the main category and subcategories, but also included what our current understanding was. And I think that sharing this with the client and Matt for review would really help. If any of our existing assumptions that we're operating on are wrong, it's a good opportunity for Matt to come in and check our logic. The last thing about Gemini that I've been using for TFT was you're able to create mind maps, and you're also able to, you don't have to use all of the sources, so you can select simple sources, just one source to create a very specific mind map if you don't want to generate a mind map of the entire project. And so I don't know how quickly it'll generate this, but one thing that I wanted to show you is a flow of how to turn one question into a mind map for me and for Liv to refer back to. And so the question I'm typing out is, can you write a user journey or a flow for the action after action reports that Liv designed? And we'll see what it generates. And currently we selected all the sources. So it is scanning every single call or reference that we currently have. And once this loads, so this logic about the user journey and the flow loads, what I'll end up doing is I'm going to save this note. So this save to note button has saved this after action report redesign user flow documentation. And I'm also able to turn this into a source. So I'll convert this to a source. And once this has been added to a source, it should show up on this sidebar here, and I'll deselect everything and select just the source. And from the source, I'm going to create a mind map. And so this was a multi-step process, but it is very helpful to have a tool or an AI tool to take the logic from all of our calls over the past 9 months since we started this phase of the project, to condense it down to one feature, and then to later generate this mind map that's specific to the after action redesign flow. So this could happen for, of course, the after action reports that Liv is working on, but for all of the features that Danny, Ben, and Chris are each working on. So really nifty trick here to once you get in here and understand selecting sources, converting chats to sources, and taking advantage of it that way. The last thing I will share, just as a quick reminder, is this doesn't have to be the 62 source project, because TFT is quite a big one, but I have a very small example of Liv was ready to create a new mockup for a singles page. And of course, I could have gone and scanned through the Gemini transcript myself, but I wanted to specifically know what they wanted from the singles article template. And so I wanted to give Liv the correct feedback and direction for that next mockup. And so what I did was I specifically brought in the discovery call transcript. And then I asked Notebook LM, can you please let me know what the pain points are about the article singles and how we can improve it? And once that was done, I saved the response. I saved this response quite easily, and you can even copy this and paste it into here. So I said, hey, can you turn this into a simple checklist that a designer can follow, because this is a hefty, wordy list. And so it is quite simple to go over to ChatGPT and have it reformatted into a checklist format that Liv can go in and have a clear list of pain points to address, the actual specific requested changes, and then the new blocks that the client wanted. So that's an example for a smaller case scenario where it is helpful to just upload one source and quickly get a clear list of requirements. So that is it for my end, and I will actually hand it over to Christine.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. All right, so through our content processes, we the last year or so have done, I think, a really nice job finding efficiency opportunities that we can use different AI tools for. So the last couple weeks, I've been trying to push it a step further. Like, now that our processes are more efficient, how can we use AI to kind of go beyond that initial efficiency usage? So thinking of ways to use AI to create better content instead of just those time-saving opportunities. And a lot of times that does mean taking extra time in a project to make it better. But now that we have, this efficient process, we have that space in some projects to actually use it to improve the end result. So one example of that is in its early stages. So I'm kind of preemptively sharing a process that isn't fully finished, but using it to actually audit our content and identify specific improvements that we can make. So in this example, we have two versions of the process of SEO content optimizations. So in our current process, we research and identify keywords in SEMrush. We use that information that we learned and all of the other background and context that we have from the client to create a prompt and draft that first version of a new or updated piece of content. And then we take that initial draft and revise it to give it that human touch and to make sure it's aligned with our overall strategy and takes all of that context that we have into mind. And in this second version of the process, we take that a step further and then take that end piece of content and put it back through ChatGPT to actually audit it and identify improvements, which we can then use to revise that content a second time internally before sharing it with the content and sharing it with the client. And this use case is, I found, really helpful for larger projects that have that extra time that we can use to really increase the chances of ranking for super difficult keywords that are really, really important to a client's mission. So in order to have ChatGPT audit a piece of content that we submit, I've been working on a matrix of all of these different elements that make a piece of content great and make it more likely to rank in search engines. So I told ChatGPT everything that all of the best practices that we want to follow and all of the different elements of that content that we want it to ultimately have. And it helped me create these categories and weights for the audit. So it's very extensive. This is not even the full list in this screenshot on the left here. But it also takes into account things like the relevancy to the audience, carrying more weight in the audit than something like visual supports that aren't a good fit for every single piece of content to have, you know, an image of something at every single scroll depth. So I created this list and had also a scale to kind of grade the piece of content so that we can know right off the bat kind of how much additional work we're looking at. A rating of 1 to 10, with 1 being terrible and 10 being amazing, with that weighted scale. And then also asking ChatGPT to put together a list based on these scores for each of the categories, a list of quick wins, things that we can use, you know, to very quickly improve a piece of content, as well as longer term are things that would take more time and effort to improve. Things like, you know, backlinking and additional subtopics and that sort of thing. As well as our focus on conversion enhancements. So making sure that those opportunities are also always listed in the audit outcomes there. So taking all of that and pinpointing like very clear next steps and improvements that we can make to a piece of content to enable it to kind of right off the bat have a better chance of breaking into search results sooner. Actually, I'm gonna share what it looks like to actually run through that audit for, and this example is from the Oblates of the Virgin Mary. 2 weeks ago now, we very quickly created a new blog post for them based on the Pope came out with his first piece of writing as Pope, and they were like, we want to get something out on our website very fast so that we can be one of the first organizations talking about this and have that, you know, early increased chance of ranking for something that there isn't a lot of content online about yet. So we put together a very quick blog post for them that sent visitors to the actual Vatican website to read that full writing from the Pope. And after we got it live, since it was a very rush project, I put it through our new content audit prompt to see what changes we could make to make it better so that it doesn't look like and feel like such a rush, and we can like take full advantage of that early discussion of a new piece of content. Yes, the Pope. So it gave an executive summary of the current state of the blog post and some really key updates that we could make to it, put it through the audit matrix with a grade for each one. You can see they don't have a ton of visuals for the Pope since they don't have like a direct relationship with him. And we need to add some internal links. So there's just like very clear updates that we can come out of this audit with that won't take a ton of time, but will make the post a lot better and have a better chance of ranking for something that could potentially drive a lot of traffic to their website. So here's that example of the quick wins, strategic improvements, and those conversion enhancements that I requested from them. And it added some, optional add-ons that I had not initially included in my audit matrix, but am now considering adding based on this first use of it. So accessibility would be a great add-on. We also have their journey and ideal funnel for all of their audience personas built out, so we could make a better use of that with this journey integration add-on. There's just a lot of potential to take a piece of content that a couple months ago we would have just posted and then moved on and waited to see from the results in our SEO tool. It can take up to 6 months to break into the ranking before we would then go back and say, oh, this one is not breaking into the ranking. What can we do to improve it? This is a little more forward thinking, where we can, before even updating or posting it, give it another round of review using ChatGPT and make it better from the start. But kind of along those lines of thinking, I really like taking ChatGPT and asking it to suggest ways to improve a piece of content, a blog post, a page, a strategy, in order to reach a specific goal. I like asking it what kinds of updates it would make to this piece of content in order to better align it with a persona or a organization's voice. I also really like asking it to analyze something that I created for missed conversion opportunities. I've gotten a lot of really good ideas from running those prompts through ChatGPT prior to sharing a strategy or piece of content with a client. But that is what I have.
Cool. Thanks, Christine. And yeah, I like doing that where it's like, you're this persona, help me analyze this. I do that a lot with like potential client emails or difficult emails that we need to send folks. So, but the work can be done in the same exact way, which is, yeah, you're a mom who's interested in this organization. Tell us how you'd react to this email. Liv, I don't know, we have about 3 minutes left, so I don't know how much you had prepared or how quickly we can get this, but I don't know if there's anything additional.
Yeah, maybe I will just share one thing that I think that maybe some of our digital strategists will enjoy, and then invite you all to reach out, especially when it comes to like anything that has to do with image editing. I have used AI a lot to create wireframes, like really nice looking HTML wireframes. That has been super helpful for like organizing client content. But that's a little bit more of a lengthy subject. I have gotten a couple requests in the past for folks that are like, Liv, there's an overlay on this image. We need to recreate the whole thing. That's super annoying. So I just wanted to show you like something that I have done that has been really great, especially for hero images and stuff. Not this thing about Paul at the Beautiful Gate, which is for a project called Gate Beautiful. But like I started off with this original image. This is a real stock image, but the issue is that it doesn't work really well in a hero section because there's just too much going on. And so something that I have started doing is just like prompting to get like the image to give me a little bit more space. These are so simple. I don't even say anymore. At the beginning, I would give it to ChatGPT and be like, make sure that it only takes up 30% of the frame and it should be totally on the right. And I need that, but I don't really find myself needing to do that anymore. So this is just for when you guys are using marketing materials and your client sends you something and is like, this is what we used 5 years ago and really like this image, but like, we don't know what to do with it now. That this can be a really easy way of kind of getting back those images and being able to use them or of modifying them in small ways to make them more usable. I find Google AI Studio in general has way better image generation than ChatGPT, but doesn't have the like thinking capacity for wireframes that ChatGPT does. So happy to talk about this more. And if you guys have any questions about it, I think I'm presenting next week on a totally different topic. So if you guys do have questions then that come up and you want to talk through them after that also, then that's great. Ta-da.
Amazing. And yeah, just exactly 3 minutes. That's perfect. You get a shout out next week for that. Cool. Well, we are at the top. Thank you so much, Seung, Christine, and Liv. These are great ideas and topics and ways that we should definitely be utilizing AI tools. So look forward to seeing how others are doing in the future, but continue to post in the AI Guild channel, and we'll hopefully get more of these ideas out there so that people can be using them. So, but otherwise, have a see you later.